Split Rock Lighthouse in Minnesota on Lake Superior, an iconic Minnesota monument, probably one of the most photographed lighthouses in the country, is located in a Minnesota state park by the same name and is my next backpacking adventure. I set off from the main trail center and walked on this gentle, wide trail to Pebble Beach, where I very quickly realized this is the location where people take those great photographs of the lighthouse or use it as a location for painting the lighthouse. I've never seen it from this perspective. It was very cool. The scenery along the rest of the trail is also very beautiful, as you can see. The trail goes through the cart-in campsites where campers put all their gear in a cart and roll it to their campsites, which aren't far from the main trailhead, so the roads are nice and flat and wide. You get to a point where that campground ends and the backpacking trail begins, and it's just beyond these 4 posts. I'm heading towards backpack site number 2. The trail becomes noticeably more rugged at this point. The map notes that there are stairs to the lake. Well, yeah, there sure are. There's a lot of stairs to the lake, with lots of landings and lots of steep stairways. This really is an impressive structure that leads down to the lakeshore. I was really glad to have my hiking poles to help stabilize me while I was walking down these steps with a backpack. And then once you're done hiking down, there's a little bit going up. The landings provide some opportunities to take a look at some beautiful views of the lake and some of the surrounding scenery. So you get rewarded as you're going down those stairs. It's worth it. The mileage to backpack site 2 from the trailhead is about 1.25 miles, and it's a fairly easy hike. The trail is pretty easy going. I have to say it's well marked with signs and trail maps. The trails leading to the backpack sites pretty much hug the lake shore. Just a little bit farther, and there it is, my site, Backpack 2, my home for the next 2 nights. Walking along the short trail to get to the site, I was absolutely delighted when I saw it. It's right on a cliff overlooking Lake Superior, and it affords you all of these beautiful views of the lake. Isn't that great? Some amenities on the site include this big steel bear box to put your food in. In fact, it was large enough for me to use like a closet, and I put almost all of my gear in it. There's a nice fire ring, and a half a picnic table, which was certainly fine for me. I suppose a group of 4 might find that a little tight, but it worked okay for me. And here's the tent pad for the site. A trail near the bear box takes you down to the rocky shore of the lake, where you can sit and enjoy the scenery or get water as you need. Here's the view to the left, and the view to the right. Sitting on the beach, I noticed these rusted metal wheels, which at first I thought were part of a train car. I think they're part of a mining operation. They say Duluth, Minnesota, 1899. Here's the latrine. It's enclosed in 3 sides, and I took a picture of it because it reminded me of one of those Alaska real estate shows where a couple was looking at one of those and then commented it had $1 million view. Here's the $1 million view from the Minnesota latrine. I set up my hammock in a small cluster of birch trees right at the edge of the site overlooking the lake. Of course, you're going to get some cool air and breezes there, so I improvised an underquilt and I had my thermal sleeping pad. Put the rain fly up because it was supposed to rain that first night. Here's the view from my hammock. Isn't that beautiful? And here's an overall view of my camp setup. After a dinner of Mountain House beef stew, which actually lasted me 2 days, I reheated the leftovers, I decided to take a hike at a nearby overlook trail near my site. There was a former mining site up there, and they thought that they were mining a mineral that was useful for grinding wheels and sandpaper, which was actually important to Minnesota companies like 3M. They have an interpretive sign here that reveals that it really wasn't the mineral they thought it was, and the mining operation closed after a couple of years. You hike up the trail and you can see some vestiges of the mining operation, but don't stop there. Take the little trail that continues up the hill, and sometimes, even though it gets really rugged, You will be rewarded as you reach the top and crest the top of the hill to this big rock, and you will see views like this. On the way down, I started photographing some interesting things I noticed, like this fungus coming off the sides of these trees. This one looks so much like a nose, it reminded me of those mean apple trees on The Wizard of Oz. The forest is filled mostly with birch trees, and the trail was lined everywhere with bluebells. It was very pretty. The sun was setting when I got back to my site, so I walked down to the lakeshore and just sat and enjoyed the scenery. I was really pleased to see this night sky because despite the forecast of thunderstorms and rain, it actually cleared up and it was a really nice, clear night that night. Oh, when I looked to the left, I realized that way at the top of that outcropping is the overlook that I was photographing from a little while ago. You're allowed to gather wood at the backpacking sites for a fire, so I did that. And what you're listening to now is a combination of crackling fire and waves crashing on the rocky beach. The next morning was cloudy, but the rain held off, so I decided to go hiking. I left my site, walked past the other two remaining backpacking sites, 3 and 4, probably about a mile or a little more until I got to Highway 61, where there's a trailhead for the Superior Hiking Trail. I was going to take the Superior Hiking Trail's Split Rock Loop, and one of the features there is a pair of stone columns which may or may not explain the origin of the name Split Rock. Here's the beginning of the trail. You get a little flight of stairs going down, and then you see the sign for the Split Rock Loop Trail. This is part of the Superior Hiking Trail. You can bypass it if you want to, but it's a beautiful part of the trail. About 4.5 miles up the mountain and back down as you follow the river. Take some steep stairs down to a bridge over the river. At the far end on the left is a trail log. Someone had noted that the bridge at the end of the trail going up was out, and then someone else noted that it was back in. So I wasn't sure, but I figured I would walk and check it out. I saw several waterfalls along the way. The trail mostly follows the river, and you can see several views of it going up. Some of the trail is kind of rugged and muddy, and they've built these little bridges that you can walk over. More of the natural scenery of the Split Rock Loop Trail. Like I said, there are several waterfalls. I stopped at this one and had some water and a small snack and just enjoyed listening to the water rush by for several minutes. This waterfall is a little bit farther up the river, and this scene a little farther still. And then after about 1.5 miles, you turn a corner and suddenly you're presented with these two columns. It looks like a big rock that might have broken and split, creating the name Split Rock. I can only imagine what earlier peoples must have thought of these two pillars in the middle of the woods. Some more beautiful scenes. Word of caution about the Superior Hiking Trail in this part: it's challenging, it's rugged, there are loose rocks, there are big tree roots, there are uneven surfaces, good hiking boots, and I really recommend hiking poles as well. I'm interested in possibly camping on the Superior Hiking Trail, so I was glad to be able to see 2 of the campsites along the way and check those out and see what they offer. There are tent pads and a fire ring and a bench to sit on and a latrine in each one. Here's the last one just before you get to the bridge that crosses the river. It turns out the bridge was definitely out. Some more daring and nimble people than myself jumped across rocks over rushing water to get to the other side. I decided discretion was the better part of valor, and I backtracked, so here I am back at the beginning of the trail. I put a note in the trail log that the bridge was definitely out. I got back to my site and I kind of flopped on my picnic table and had some food. I was visited often by this little guy, and I know I shouldn't have, but I broke off half a cracker and I gave it to him, and he seemed very happy and munched contentedly on this thing for about 5 minutes. The squirrel and the seagulls were pretty much most of the wildlife I saw, except when walking down a trail I saw something that looked like a bird, kind of chicken-like. I think it might have been a grouse. Here's a Google image of a red grouse. I think I saw something like that. I also saw some large scat on the trail that when I later did some research suggested it might have been black bear. Well, a little later, after dinner, I decided to hike up to another scenic overlook on the Day Hill Trail. You walk up a steep trail, get to the top of the mountain, and here's this stone fireplace just sitting there in the middle of nowhere. There's an interpretive sign that offers kind of a romantic explanation that someone built it for their dream house, but then they didn't get married after all, and that's as far as they got. I don't know. But you get gorgeous views from the top of the world looking down on Minnesota and Lake Superior. It's just gorgeous up there. When I got back to my campsite in the evening, I noticed some strange meteorological phenomenon. There were cold pockets of air that I could walk into and then step back out of, and I swear it was like 20 degrees difference or more. And then I also noticed across the lake there was this thin layer of fog. I don't know if you can see it just by the tree line in the distance. It was long and thin, and it just kind of stayed there for about a half an hour. I've never seen anything quite like it, but it was very beautiful and kind of magical. The next morning was bright and sunny. It was time for me to pack up and leave, but before I did, I took one more picture of the campsite, which I think has to be one of the best campsites in Minnesota. Thank you very much, Split Rock Lighthouse State Park. I really enjoyed myself, and thank you for watching.